Hey guys, welcome back. This is the fourth video in the E3 series. Now, I actually am doing just the single image only because I tried to upload not Ubisoft, my Microsoft video, and I got tagged with having third-party content, and I don't really want this channel to deal with that kind of stuff. So a single picture is okay, and that. Sorry, I'm just going to adjust the mic a little bit. Then that is what I'm going to do. So I'm sorry if you don't like it, but that's all I'm able to do for you guys. I'm sorry. I still have to put the annotations in there into the video to send you to these other videos as I put them out. Now I know this is a bit late, but I have Sony to do and Nintendo. But for Nintendo, I didn't take any notes, so I'm going to do it off the top of my head. So that one probably isn't going to be as long as the others. I'm just going to cover the main things in the Nintendo event. But that aside, we're here to talk about Sony. Okay, so for the Sony event, I actually wrote 3 pages of notes because they ran through quite a bit of stuff. And that all began with Jack Tretton coming out. He's the American I think he might be the American president of Sony or Sony Entertainment or the PlayStation brands. I'm not exactly sure, but he's a figurehead in the Sony company. He came out and addressed the issue with Sony PSN with the outage that happened relatively recently, a month or two ago. And he just basically said he's sorry, and they're trying to do all they can to fix or make amends with players because they're only running at 90% of what they were before, and he said that's unacceptable. So hopefully they'll be back 100% fairly soon. And then to continue on for the rest of the show on higher notes, they technically began the show with that, but I'm going to say they began the show with Uncharted 3. Now, Uncharted 3 may be the game I'm looking forward to the most. It's up there with Far Cry 3. Far Cry 3 and Uncharted 3 are the 2 games that I'm actually looking forward to the most. Because Bioshock Infinite, I'm not exactly sure when that's coming out, so that aside, yeah, Uncharted 3. It looks very, very nice. Uh, just like the first game. If you have a 3D TV, then you'll be able to experience the 3D in it. Seeing as I don't, I can't. I don't know. I don't think it's move compatible. It wouldn't make sense for it to be. At least, my opinion, it wouldn't be. So I believe it's just standard control anyway. But in the demo they play, you're kind of like on this boat, and you're just being rocked around, and Drake's trying to catch his footing as as the boat is being rocked around so much because they look like you're there in a very rough sea, and yeah, issues with that. Can't really stand up when you're trying to keep your footing on a wobbly boat. But they added that effect of realism, like in the first game. They had the fire. If you walk near a fire, he'd hold up his hand toward the fire in the best area to shield himself from the heat, which I believe I saw in another demo. I don't remember what the demo was, but he also did that again. They have swimming involved because Drake shot out a part. I don't know if you can hear that, but I'm getting messages from a friend. Uh, they, oh, if he's gonna spam these, I'm gonna be mad. But he's sending out. He said, I'm so distracted by that now. What was I saying? Oh, he shot out, blew up something, and the side of the boat kind of started gaining water. So you were starting to drown basically, and you just had to get one last breath of air and then swim to an area of the boat that wasn't underwater. So I don't think there was underwater portions in the first or second games. So this game has underwater portions, which in some cases can be the bane of existence for many game developers, just because if it's not handled well, it can turn out pretty bad. But overall, the trailer looked very, very awesome. The trailer slash gameplay. Actually, no, they showed a trailer after it. That's what it was. They showed a trailer after it, and that just looked phenomenal. And after Uncharted 3, they showed Resistance 3, and again, looks very, very nice. Big Resistance fan. Can't wait for the third installment of the series. I don't know if it'll be the final. I hope not, because I love the series, but if they do, it looks like they're going to end on a high note. But Resistance 3 looks good overall. And then with those two 3D games out of the way, because Resistance 3 I believe is also 3D compatible, they announced something interesting. Sony, the electronic side of Sony, is releasing a TV specifically created for the PS3. It's going to be a 24-inch 3D TV. But what's special about it is that it's you can have two people looking at the same screen but seeing two different images with their own 3D glasses on. So there's no need for split screen anymore. You can just look at the same screen and play your own thing. Now, how I believe this works, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe 3D TVs or 3D anything uses two images. They just overlay them, and that gives the depth and the outward effect of the image. But since there's four, they're basically two separate sets of screens. It's basically two screens on one, so you just have to augment the two glasses to see the two different things, which I think is amazing. But you do not only get the TV, you get a copy of Resistance 3, an HDMI cable, and one pair of glasses, and the 24-inch 3D TV as well. And it actually looks fairly nice, because most Sony products are nice. And the really cool thing is that this retails for $4.99, which at first it was like, that's pretty expensive, but then you got thinking, you get a game, an HDMI cable, I'm assuming Sony brand, the TV, and a pair of glasses, which run you $60-$70. Pretty good deal, in my opinion. Pretty good deal. When most 3D TVs are enormous and cost $3,000 or whatever. So I think you get a pretty good deal on that. I might actually pick that up for myself later. And then they went over to the PSP/PS3 side of things. They announced a God of War Origins collection, which is going to be a PS3 game. But what it is, it's God of War Chains of Olympus and Ghost of Sparta, both PSP games, which are going to be completely remastered, HD, everything, 720p, and put on the PS3, which is very, very cool. So if you don't have a PSP and you weren't able to experience that, you can actually go out and get that. And as well, they're remaking Ico and Shadow of the Colossus. And both of these games, the God of War Origins collection and the Ico Shadow of the Colossus collection, will be out in September. Next page. Now, they talked about some sports games, which I didn't really care about, and some other move stuff. Like they showed NBA 2K12. I'm not a big fan of sports in general, as I've stated many times before in these videos. But an interesting thing was Kobe Bryant came out and he actually played the game for a little bit, and it's a pretty interesting bit of the show. So if you haven't seen it, you can probably go find it in there. As long as you see Kobe come out or a sports segment, you're going to see it there. And then they had a thing called Medieval Moves. I'm still not entirely sure what it is. I don't quite remember, but yeah, there's a game, Medieval Moves, coming out. It's a move-specific game. And then Infamous 2, which is awesome. I have it right now. Planning an LP for it. I actually have recorded the first 3 episodes, so this is kind of a sneak peek of that. So, Infamous 2 is very, very good. They just kind of did the same thing every year where they just show a game that's already out or just come out or just came out. Actually, I believe at the time of this recording, the game came out the day after, or the day of this airing. So I think it came out Monday. This was on Monday, and the game came out Tuesday, so it made sense. And then they showed a Little Big Planet 2 update, which showed that they showed a Little Big Planet 2 update, which allowed people to use or to create levels with move support built in, which is interesting. I still don't have Little Big Planet 2. Have the first one. Didn't get it through the Welcome Back program. I had it before. Had it when it first came out. But yeah, still need to get Little Big Planet 2. And then they showed Starhawk, which My little brother is actually a big fan of Warhawk, so that's something he's interested in. It looks like they teased space battles. That would be pretty interesting. It's just this is more sci-fi-ish than the first one was. Is basically what it amounts to. And finally, or not finally, but well, I guess finally they showed Sly 4. With all the teasers out there, it was bound to happen, and it's called Sly, or not Sly 4. It's Sly 4 is called Sly Cooper: Thieves in Time, which I didn't play Sly 3, but I did play Sly 1 all the way, and I played most of Sly 2, but I didn't complete it. I actually got my PS3 before I actually beat that game, so I wasn't able to play it all the way through. But now that the Sly Cooper collection is out, I guess there's not really an excuse for me not to play it. But yeah, if you're a Sly fan, Sly 4 is coming out. Lucky for you. Now, I wrote down another game called Dust. Will be connected with EVE Online. Oh, I remember this now. It's going to be a first-person shooter that's going to be connected to EVE Online, which you play through your PS3. It's very, very convoluted in how they were describing it. I'm still not 100% sure how it's going to be connected to EVE Online, because EVE Online is an MMO for the PC, and this, I don't know if this is going to be an MMO, or it's just going to be connected in certain ways if you have an MMO account, or if you can actually play with the people that have. I'm not really 100% sure, so yeah, it's still a little sketchy on the. I'm still a little sketchy on the details, but it actually looked like a decent shooter. I mean, not the greatest in the world, but it still looked okay. And they also said it will be available on the NGP, which we'll get to in a second, which isn't actually called the NGP, just to let you know. And then it showed BioShock Infinite, or talked about it some more. And I wrote here, second or third most excited game of the show, which I said about almost every other game, second or third. So, what is it? Uncharted 3 and Far Cry 3 were my first most excited, and then I had like a bunch of other second and third most excited. But when you get BioShock Infinite, you'll get a free copy of BioShock 1 on the same disc, because there's enough room on Blu-ray to do that. Which I think is very, very nice and very cool that Irrational would do that. Most game developers wouldn't. And then Ken Levine also announced that Irrational is working on a new BioShock for the NGP, which, like I said, isn't really called the NGP. Is going to be on the NGP, which he held up and basically just announced it there. Then he showed Saints Row the Third, which is going to be move supported. I'm not a big fan of Saints Row at all. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of Grand Theft Auto, to tell you the truth. It's not that I don't like the game. I mean, I like playing it. It's a pretty fun game because you can go around and pass. It's basically a pass controller game when my friends get around. I mean, I know it has a story, but we just like to enter in all the cheat codes and just wreak havoc. And then they announced a new Star Trek game to go along with the movie, which I don't know, it came out of nowhere really. It was also move supported. SSX, the game I mentioned previously, I believe at the EA press conference, maybe Microsoft as well, but the SSX for PS3 will have an exclusive Mount Fuji race, which could be pretty cool. And then for the PS3 version of Need for Speed The Run, you'll get 7 extra cars, and in the Battlefield 3 copy or version of for the PS3, you'll get Battlefield 1943 free on the same disc as the same as BioShock Infinite. Now this is where we get to the good stuff. The NGP is actually called the PlayStation Vita, or the PSV is what I call it. Some of my friends just call it the Vita. Some of my friends call it the PSP2. I like PSV. Now there's two versions. There's a version for $249, which is Wi-Fi only, which will run you $249, like I said. And then there's also a $300 version, which is 3G. Now that 3G is through AT&T. When they said that, I heard people booing in the audience, which I just laughed. My brother was there with me. He didn't quite understand it, but it was very, very funny. There's like, he's like, oh, we're going to team up specific or exclusively with AT&T, and there's someone who goes like, boo. There's some gasps and a few laughs, but I just thought it was really funny. And they also announced Uncharted 3 Golden Abyss, Ruin for PSV. Sorry, I actually sneezed there. I wanted to cover it up so you guys didn't have to hear me. Oh, I'm good now. I'm gonna control myself, put myself back in the mood. As I said, the games they announced: Uncharted Golden Abyss, Ruin, Mod Nation Racer, Wipeout 2048, Little Big Planet, and Street Fighter Cross Tekken. And on the Street Fighter Cross Tekken, you'll actually have Cole from Infamous, which is very, very interesting. Little Big Planet, it looks to be more like the PS3 counterpart than the PSP. It's not like a rehash, it's a completely new game on its own. Wipeout 2048, all the Wipeout games are the same, so you know what you're getting there. But it does have crossplay between the PS3 and PSV. Same with Mod Nation crossplay. Not crossplay, but something I'll mention in a second. And Ruin as well. Ruin actually does have. Actually, it's not crossplay. It's a cloud save, is what it is. You can send if you save it on your PSV, that information you can send that information to your PS3 and play from where you left off. Say if you got to a certain point in Uncharted and you were playing on your PS3, and you're like, oh, I need to if it's announced for the PS3. Actually, I'll use Ruin because I know Ruin is actually going to be on the PS3. Ruin, if you are playing through that game, you're hacking, slashing, killing enemies, because that's like an isometric, top-down, third-person game, and you're making your way through, and you get to a dungeon, you beat the dungeon, and then you have to go somewhere. You're like, oh, but I'll have time to play it when I go there, or whatever. You can actually save it on your PS3, send that information to your PSV, and then just continue from there. Now, one detail I'm a little sketchy on for the PSV is I'm not 100% sure if it's a disc-based or if it's memory only. I'm pretty sure it's memory only, but I'm still not 100% sure on that. Now, not the specific specs for it because I have not actually looked them up, but the hardware detail on its own, it has 2 analog sticks, which, thank God, finally someone did that. 2 analog sticks, the same D-pad and classic triangle, square, circle, cross buttons on any other PlayStation controller. Has a little L and R buttons on top, but it also has a touchscreen on front, which is actually pretty cool because that's something the big screen just was calling for. And then on the back as well, there's a touchscreen, which from reports I've heard, it can be kind of annoying to deal with simply because when you had your old PSP, I'm actually holding mine right now, you had your thumbs lay over the D-pad and the buttons, and your 2 index fingers just on the L and R buttons, and your other fingers just kind of laid back behind. How I play it is my 2 middle fingers will rest on the back while the ring finger and the pinky finger kind of lay on top of each other and are on the bottom, like supporting it. That's how I play it. Some people play it with all the 3 other fingers behind it, but that's how I play it. But the issue is, you can't have those middle fingers back there, because they'll touch the screen and do something in the game that you may not mean to if the game uses the back touchscreen, which, from what I've seen, most of them do. But what they've included is if you have a PSP, or you can go look at an image, the far extreme sides have little rubber divots. So it looks like you can take those middle fingers, if you play it like I do, and just kind of tuck them to the sides. So you're kind of like pinching the sides of the system with your thumb and your middle fingers, while your other fingers your index fingers are on top of the buttons, and your ring and pinky fingers are just out of the way. Which seems interesting because then you can just take your middle finger and do whatever you want on the back, or take your other fingers, for instance, and do the same. Because I know Mod Nation Racer, if you are making a course and you want a mountain, you can just push on the back of the screen, and wherever your fingertips are, mountains will come up. And same goes if you push down on the top, valleys will be created. Well, I kind of want to get through that fast. It's been 20 minutes right now. So, I think I've explained the whole PSV because after they ran through their new TV thing, the 3D TV, and whatever, the few PS3 games they had, they hit hard on the PSV, the PS Vita. Vita is Latin for life, so that's what that means. And not really much else happened after they announced the PSV. I didn't write anything else down, so I'm pretty sure that was all they really covered. So, that is it for Sony. Next up is Nintendo. So, I'd like to thank you guys for watching. Or listening. I've been Hello Japan, and I will see you guys next time with Nintendo. See ya.